we have Anne, who is a life code 9. Now, Anne feels unable to speak up in certain situations and doesn't understand why. This has been a problem for her entire life. Now, I'm sure that's very familiar, not only to Anne, but to you. Okay, so let's have a look. So Anne is a life code 9. Now, we're going to have a look at her dilemma just as herself, and I will be looking at it in terms of how that matches with her in her everyday life.
Welcome to the Sensitive Mind Show.
Your purpose in life as a sensitive is to experience the deeper parts of the mind, to move beyond fear and to manage your energy, no matter the circumstance. I'm going to show you, as a sensitive, how you can maximize your talents and feel comfortable in your own skin. For show notes and to join the conversation, visit heidisawyer.com/mind.
What has Anne told us? Okay. What's the situation? I find myself unable to speak up for myself in certain situations, even if it's my health. I have sensitivities, for example, to synthetic fragrances, chemicals. I bring my own towels and shampoo and products to the hairdresser. Today, I completely forgot my shampoos, and it's only occurred to me as I sat at the basin and I started to smell the fragrances from the shampoo. I did not say anything or ask her to stop, and even allowed her to condition my hair. So what's the problem the situation creates? I feel really disturbed and confused as to why I'm not speaking up in this type of situation. I feel upset and anxious at my inability to not speak up in the moment. I withdraw into myself and want the situation to be over as quick as possible. This is a pattern from childhood that I can't seem to shift. Okay, so question that she wants me to answer is, how can I shift this pattern and be able to confidently speak up in a situation like this? Thank you. Okay, so what does Anne want to know? She wants help with finding her voice, okay, and being able to speak up with confidence, and wants to know why this has been something that she's been unable to do when it's particularly important to her in her everyday life. Okay, so what do we have as far as that's concerned? Well, Anne is a life code 9. We've got her as the tape over her mouth, feeling that she can't speak. So why do we have this situation where we feel we can't speak up? Now, this is something that really, really infiltrates those who are sensitive. Okay, it completely infiltrates our entire system, either regularly or at some point in our lives. Why? Why? Because it's embedded in our nervous system. It's embedded in our nervous system quite often to see somebody else as the authority rather than ourselves. So we'll only then respond to the authority. Even our body then becomes the authority over and above our own decisions and our own levels of interaction. Okay, so what's going on as far as Anne is concerned? Well, she's saying that this has been embedded since childhood. It's been something that she's experienced since a very early age. Now, Anne won't be the only person that this occurs to, but what it does is it brings up this fury, this anger, this irritation, and also this embarrassment deep within ourselves that somehow or another we're not dealing with this or managing this when we're actually not a child anymore. We're a fully grown adult who can voice those things, and people like this hairdresser wouldn't expect it to be an unreasonable scenario to say, actually, can you stop and not put that on my hair because actually I'm allergic to it, I'm allergic to those scents, and I'll suffer for those once I've left this building. Okay, so let's have a look at Anne and see where this comes from. Bearing in mind that Anne is a life code 9. So again, everything will be about the subconscious. Everything will be about what's tucked away. So let's have a look and see what the source is. Okay, because some of Anne's sensitivities may have an emotional source rather than a physical source, or it's an emotional source interacting with a sensitive body. So let's see if that is a possibility. Okay, so giant stack of archetypes. I'm thinking about Anne and her allergies, and I'm also thinking about addressing it for her as a life code 9, as in what is buried deep in there, in the unconscious, in the subconscious, which triggers from an emotional perspective, an interaction with her nervous system that then creates a nervous system reaction, which puts her body in either, let's say, a fight, flight or freeze mode, where she then has adjustments in her cortisol levels, which then brings out an allergic reaction. So let's have a little look and see what happens, or where it comes from. Okay. So I'm thinking of Anne and her allergies and having a look to see what there is buried deep in her subconscious of her as a 9 that's trying to resolve and express itself so that she doesn't have to, number 1, feel these allergies quite so strongly, and number 2, feeling that she's able to speak up when they occur or before they occur. Okay, so what do we have? We have here, what comes out is the victim. Okay, so what Anne would do well to do is to locate in her life when it was that she first felt, and I would say shouted at. Okay, because as a child, as we are as a child, if we've got a sensitive system, we'll know very much the first time we felt shouted at, and that shouting will have had a line of humiliation attached to it. So the first time that Anne felt that she was shouted at, and it had a line of exposure where she felt humiliated. Okay, so that would be the source of the fact that she's unable to speak up in her external world when it comes to something that's important for her. Okay, so what I'm going to do is choose another archetype and place that into the 110 of her physical world. Okay, so let's see if we can find the link as far as that's concerned, as in where that originated from. So as an example, if she's struggling to find that source, or remember back when she first felt shouted at, it will trigger some thoughts as far as that process is concerned. And it may even, if Anne's story feels familiar to you, maybe it'll trigger something for yourself. Maybe you have an issue about speaking up and you feel that someone else is always the authority rather than you, and you only speak up when you feel cornered or properly annoyed that it comes out your mouth as a rather than a okay, the boundary is set here. So let's have a little look and see if there's any connectors. So, something's just fallen out there. Okay, so I'm thinking of Anne in terms of that connection into herself as her physical experience of life. And let's have a look. We've got God. So it's exactly what I thought it was before we even started looking at this. So what it's linked to, absolutely, it will be about authority. It will be a parent, most likely, because, when we're small people, when we're children, what do we see as the ultimate authority? We see it as a parent. We see what our parents' viewpoint is as the authority, the God in our own lives. Why? Because we don't feel that we have an authority otherwise, because without doing things that the parent wants or expects from us, often it's a case of, well, will I ever get fed? That's how the child self perhaps perceives that. So Anne would do, in order to solve this, would be do very well to find the first time that she was shouted at, where her system experienced it as a humiliation. It came from a parent, most definitely, because it's that first way of how she identified what was the authority. And I would say it would be a parent with a very strong will. Why? Because it's represented as the God archetype. Okay, so last part within this, let's have a look at how Anne can, once she's found that, what she needs to do in order to release that, okay, to release that pressure inside of her own system, inside of that 9 as the subconscious, very much something that 9s carry, what she needs to identify so where it can release. Okay, so what's the release factor? What's the thing that's going to release her from this feeling, number 1, that she can actually say, and number 2, where her system doesn't need to react so high because it's not quite so often in a frightened or defense mode. Because quite often, if as a sensitive, if our system is heightened in a defense mode, yes, allergies quite often for us become stronger. Okay, so let's have a look and see what set her free from this cycle. Okay. So I've got the giant stack, and I'm thinking, right, okay, what's going to help set Anne free from this cycle? And you may well find, again, if this resonates with you, that if you think about it this way, it may release you from an ongoing cycle. So let's have a look. Let's see what it is. Okay, so, interesting. Rebel. Okay, so really interesting. So what's going to set her free is taking her mind back. This is really quite clear. Taking her mind back to the first time where she felt shouted at, which triggered a feeling in her own system of humiliation, which is the reason why she doesn't speak up when she should do, when she wants to, because she'll see everybody else as the authority other than herself. Why? It goes back to a particular occasion where a parent, because they're represented as the God archetype, felt to her as a child that the energy was expressed in an aggressive manner, in a manner that she wasn't able to digest or cope with. Why? Some people would be able to, because they don't have a sensitive system, but this is about respecting the fact that Anne clearly does, okay? Which is why it's been stored there over a long period of time, where that child self initially was terrorized to the point where it felt really frightened that she can't be her own authority in her life, and that her nervous system still stores it, and therefore it comes out in that expression of allergies. So what does she need to do? Well, what she needs to do is, yes, it is a case of discovering the rebel, but not the rebel as the adult. It's about going back in her own mind. If she thinks about it, it will surface, because people of a sensitive mind, as soon as you start to think about it, it's much easier for you to surface things. Why? Because you have that access, that raw access to your own nervous system that other people don't have. So what can she do? It's about going back to finding in her mind, thinking, oh, actually, that sprung up in my mind. As in the first time I felt that kind of line of humiliation, is to go back in her mind and find that child self and say, so, what would you like to have done? What would you have liked to have said, to say to that child self? What would you like to have said at that time? So as an example, let's say the parent shouted at her for not being good enough. Oh, you're not good enough for that. Get off that. Get off that. It's dangerous. You're not good enough for doing that. So what if her Anne's rebel child self had felt safe at the time? What would it have said? It may have said, well, I'm doing it anyway. Maybe I am good enough. Maybe I can. And then if the parent was a reasonable person, they go, okay. If they're unreasonable, then they would have tried to assert a higher authority. So if we then feel that, we think, well, okay, they would have tried to assert a higher authority and would have got more aggressive as far as their, more important, less important thing would have been going on. Then it's up to Anne to say, keep going, is to keep saying, well, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you that I can't do that, because I believe that I can, and if I can't, I am surely entitled to try, and surely that's your job as a guiding parent is to help me figure that for myself, or to support me if I don't. To help me learn through some of those falling things in life. Now, again, if that's whoa, there's no way that could have been said, then it's about Anne locating within herself that rebellious authority and saying, I don't believe you, and I no longer want your voice as my inner voice. So, if you can't be nice, leave. And then what Anne will start to see is her own voice, maybe she hasn't had her own voice throughout her life, starting to come forward. And it might be a little more expressive than she'd ever imagined. It might come out to start with as a bit more, oh, I didn't know I would say that. Oh, am I not a very nice person? No, it's just the pressure of what's been contained over a long period of time. So if she allows that to reset, let's see what happens as that result. Let's just out of curiosity, let's have a little look. Okay, this also applies to your own life. Okay. So the source where she needs to look is actually with the father energy. So either the father energy was the authority, or she didn't feel protected at a point of which she was, she felt humiliated, emotionally humiliated. She finds that all of that will solve. She'll probably find there's less pressure on her own nervous system, so her body doesn't need to go into allergy quite so often, and she'll immediately find that she's comfortable with speaking up. So, what's the lesson to learn? Sometimes what appears to be going on in the outside of our world, and we think we have to change ourselves, as in, I'm not doing this, I'm not speaking up when I should do, I'm bad because I can't speak up. Actually, the source of that can come from something much earlier in our life, and rather than trying to have to force ourselves to change, it becomes something really quite natural if we have pause enough to have a little look inside, not to confront anyone, because as a sensitive that doesn't work. It's about finding our own thing inside of ourselves that will respond to an airing. Okay? And for us as sensitives, it feels a lot easier to do. Actually, it's a lot easier to do than for the average person, because we have that illuminated access to our deeper sense of feeling and the deeper sense of our own connection with our nervous system. So that's the end of this episode of the Sensitive Mind Show. If you've enjoyed it and you found it helpful, do share it with your friends, and be sure to join me for next week, where I look forward to giving you an alternative perspective on your relationship dilemmas. Bye for now, and let me leave you with this. For more great free content designed to support your purchase of my book, Highly Intuitive People, 7 Right Brain Traits to Change the Lives of Intuitive Sensitive People, please visit finallyfeelunderstood.com. There you can subscribe and download for free the meditation specific to today's episode. If you have already read the book, then it's time for you to receive exclusive access and support from me and your fellow intuitive sensitives as we go deeper together along this proven 7-step path by joining us in my monthly membership program called Heidi's Circle. There you can ask me anything in a safe and private environment, and I will answer you live. Join us today by visiting healmyinnerworld.com.